Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the midweek edition of Business Live. Coming up, Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana further eases monetary policy, cutting its key lending rate by 250 basis points to 15.5% from 18%.
Foregoing considerations, the committee, the MPC, by a majority decision, voted to lower the monetary policy rate by 250 basis points to 15.5%.
But will this reduction lead to increased private sector growth? We shall be discussing that. Also in this bulletin, President John Mahama affirms the establishment of the Gold Board has positioned Ghana to take full control over the export of gold from the country.
The establishment of the Gold Board in April 2025, exports from the small-scale mining sector to date have increased to 104 tons, with 100% of the foreign exchange repatriated through our central bank.
Plus, from near death to nutrition, today on the Joy Business Van, we will tell you the story behind Achiever Foods. We've got details of these and more for you. Please stay on. Thanks so much for your time. I am Pius Kojobaka. To that big story for the day by way of business, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has further eased its monetary policy, cutting the lending rate by 250 basis points to 15.5% from 18%, citing improved macroeconomic conditions and sustained growth momentum in the economy. The decision follows the bank's earlier aggressive easing stance in late 2025, when the MPC reduced the policy rate by 350 basis points amid declining inflation and improving real sector activity. More in this report.
Announcing the latest decision after the MPC meeting, Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama said the committee was encouraged by the continued moderation in inflationary pressures and the resilience of economic growth.
Sustaining Ghana's macroeconomic gains will hinge on disciplined fiscal policy, strong policy coordination, and targeted agricultural interventions to contain food inflation while remaining vigilant to heightened geopolitical tensions. Based on the foregoing considerations, the committee, the MPC, by a majority decision, voted to lower the monetary policy rate by 250 basis points to 15.5%. The committee will continue to monitor developments closely and take appropriate policy actions.
Dr. Isiama also assured that the bank is committed to ensuring lending rates come down to reflect the easing policy stance.
And let me explain that is not an official commitment. That's my own personal, wish, my personal aspiration. Why? Because I have seen very high lending rates all my life. From when I joined this institution in 1995, lending rates have always been extremely high. It is my personal dream to see a reset in terms of lending rates. So it's just my own personal commitment, not an official one. And I must say that we are on course so far. Someone this morning was telling us that his bank called him and invited him to apply for a loan at 15%. 15%. A year ago, you were talking about over 30%. And then it is significant to know that banks are now beginning to call clients and asking them if they needed any loans that they could come and apply.
On the exchange rate, the governor played down concerns about the cedi's 4% depreciation recorded in January, insisting it does not pose a threat to macroeconomic stability.
It is very much in line with the framework that we have. I mentioned that what we have is a managed floating system. What that means is that you allow the exchange rate to adjust to shocks. It's part of the process. The CD must move up, but then it must move down. Our objective is to ensure that the volatilities are not excessive. And so don't get worried if you see the CD moving a little bit. It is normal. A number of factors, impact the CD at any time. There are short-term factors, uncertainty of any kind, speculative behaviors, some noise in the market. Those can just move the rate, not because anything is wrong.
The latest rate cut signals the central bank's effort to balance price stability with growth support as Ghana's economy consolidates its recovery.
Let's explore the impact of this on the economy largely and bring in an economist, Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, as well as the executive director of CPS. Thank you so much, sir, for making time to join the bulletin. Now, how will this rate cut affect Ghana's inflation rate, and what's the expected impact on the overall economy, you say?
Well, as CPS, we had predicted that the policy rate will be somewhere below 15% by the end of 2026. And we are just in January and it's now 15.5. The reason we predicted this was that anytime the inflation rate was in the single digit, policy rate had fallen below 15%. So it's good news for us. We all recall that in the run-up to 2024 election, somewhere from 2023 through 2024 to 2025, government had kept things tight fiscal policy, tight monetary policy. Now, you read the budget carefully from 2026, you are seeing some easing of the fiscal policy and easing of the monetary policy. And so this is not surprising at all. The overall impact on the economy is supposed to be positive. As the governor said, he expects this to lower lending rates. The private sector plays a key role in the economy. Out of about 12 million Ghanaian workers, 10 million are employed. Over 10 million are employed by the private sector. So you have to do everything for the private sector to flourish in your economy. And one of the indicators of cost of production in the country is the lending rate. And so we are all happy to see the policy rate coming down. We hope that it will have a positive impact on the reduction of the lending rate. That's what we want to see. I don't think that it will have any much impact on inflation, because maybe someone will expect that once you raise the policy rate, inflation also pick up. I think the CD stability or appreciation, whatever you may call it, the strength of the CD is okay. And the Bank of Ghana has made some reserves, which is okay. Our economy is still vulnerable to external shocks, so we just hope and pray that there's no external shock. And even the governor mentioned geopolitical tension. We know what happened between Russia and Ukraine. We also know what happened between Iran and Israel. We do not foresee any geopolitical tension for now. And so the outlook is positive, and we just hope, as we are all waiting for, is a reduction in the lending rate. We pray that the commercial banks will listen to the cry of businessmen and women, based on their calculations, will come out with an optimal lending rate where there will be win-win, a win for the commercial banks and also a win for businessmen and women in the country.
And I'm glad you've brought in the private sector aspect. Now, how will this reduction lead to increased private sector growth? And if so, which sectors are likely to benefit the most?
Well, if the cost of lending is lowered, you'd expect an increment in the private sector credit growth. So we hope to see a positive growth in the private sector credit. The areas to benefit most also will align with the government's vision. We saw the agricultural transformation agenda of the government, so we expect farmers to benefit from a lower lending rate. We also know of the manufacturing policies of the government. We know of mining. We know of tourism. In fact, all sectors of the economy are likely to benefit from this possible lower lending rate. So we just have to position our country. One thing that we always stress as an economist is that our country, our economy is still vulnerable. We have to develop the base. And I was happy to hear from your intro that the President of the Republic is thinking of, having 100% ownership of the gold exports in the country, which is something we have been talking about for years. Gold alone accounts for 65% of our total exports and is more than Ghana's total revenue and grants. So if we're able to command a greater share of our resources, then we are good to go. So this is positive, and I believe that all sectors of the economy will benefit going forward.
And talking about benefits, and how will commercial banks respond to this rate cut? And what's the potential impact on lending largely and borrowing rates for businesses and individuals?
Yeah, the commercial banks and the other banks are also there to make profit. When you talk to them, they will tell you that they look at so many factors before they arrive at the lending rates. One of the other factors they look at is the non-performing loans. So if the non-performing loans is high, they are likely to raise their lending rate. So we just hope that they will assess and look at all the other factors. Now what we know is a lower policy rate. So maybe based on their calculation, a lower lending rate would be fed into their calculation and give us a lower lending rate. So we just hope that the commercial banks will look at this and respond. Even if they will not respond 100%, if the linkage between policy rate and lending rate is not 100%, at least some appreciable amount of reduction in the lending rate should be made so that, like I said, it will be a win-win because they are there to make profits. So it shouldn't reduce it in such a way that they make losses, but there should be some substantial reduction so that we arrive at an optimal level where the commercial banks will benefit and the private sector will also benefit. But I believe that they respond. Again, we know that the treasury bill rate has been reducing. Currently, it's around 10% or so.
Yeah.
So if the treasury bill rate is lower, the commercial banks may be forced to lend to the private sector and not give to the government because their returns will be then lower. And if they believe that their returns on their lending to the private sector will be higher, they'll give to the private sector. And we also want to say that, there are some people who go to borrow and they don't pay.
Yeah.
And that's why some of the banks have high non-performing loans. So in as much as we are appealing to the commercial banks to follow suit and reduce the lending rate, we must also appeal to borrowers that when they take the loan, they should not defraud. They should pay. There's no default. They should pay their loans. They should intensify registration. Thank God today we have Ghana Card, which can locate you wherever you are. If you use it, we can identify the borrowers and make them repay their loans.
Dr. Edu Osisako, thank you so much for your time. Always a delight having you on Business Live. Now, let's shift focus to some other stories. President John Mahama has reaffirmed that the establishment of the Gold Board has positioned Ghana to take full control over the export of gold from the country. This, he believes, has helped the country to export 104 tons of gold from the small-scale sector in 2025. The president made the disclosure in the keynote address to open the 2026 Africa Trade Summit here in Accra. More in this report.
The Trade Summit by the African Trade Chamber has assembled key African business leaders and policymakers to deliberate on trade integration and value addition on raw materials from the continent. Keynote speaker, President John Mahama, noted that Ghana is taking the lead to benefit from its natural resource base. He disclosed that the establishment of the Gold Board has positioned the country to increase earnings from natural resources, especially gold.
We're exercising greater sovereignty over our natural resources. The establishment of the Ghana Gold Board has given us greater control over our gold exports. In 2024, total gold exports from the small-scale mining sector was said to amount to 63 tons. Of this volume, the foreign exchange repatriation accounted for only about 40 tons of the exported gold. 23 tons of forex did not come back. Since the establishment of the Gold Board in April 2025, exports from the small-scale mining sector to date have increased to 104 tons, with 100% of the foreign exchange repatriated through our central bank.
Minister of Trade, Industry and Agribusiness, Elizabeth Ofosu-Jare, charged investors to see Africa as a global market opportunity for business growth.
Ultimately, the private sector must see African industrialization not as charity, but as a major global business opportunity, driven by a market of 1.4 billion people, a median age of 19, and vast potential for sustainable returns.
Executive Chair of the African Trade Chamber, Benedicta Lassie, told Joy Business that more action is needed to solve the challenges of the continent.
We have recognized that the trajectory of the continent is one that requires a lot more action than just conversations about the challenges we have. And so this platform is really a convening of the industry leaders that would lead Africa's industrialization path.
The two-day summit is under the theme Financing Africa's Industrialization, Developing Industrial Value Chains, Benefit and Market Integration.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Advisory Board of the African Trade Chamber, Sir Sam Jonah, has charged African leaders to engineer policies to make the continent selfish in its development agenda. Speaking at the opening of the African Trade Summit, the business mogul said the vast resources on the continent, raw materials and minerals, should not be exported without value addition.
Ladies and gentlemen, Africa, with its 1.4 billion people, with its vast resources and youthful dynamism, is no weakling. We are the emerging force that can redefine the table, or we will risk being served upon it. This is the moment for Africa to be selfish, unapologetically so, boldly selfish in pursuing our interests. No more deference to distant agendas, no more exporting raw material potential while importing finished dependency. Selfish means prioritizing. Africa first, beneficiating our minerals on African soil, processing our agriculture into global brands, manufacturing pharmaceuticals that secure our health sovereignty. Selfish means demanding fair terms in every deal, rejecting exploitation disguised as aid, and leveraging our collective weight to negotiate from strength. Carney urged middle powers to stop pretending about the other's flaws, to name realities and act. Africa, let us name it. The old world profited from our fragmentation. The new world demands our unity. Let's be selfish, yes, but in a way that uplifts all Africans, creating jobs that dignify, wealth that recirculates, and futures that inspire.
This is still Business Life. Let's now take the Joy Business Van. As the year begins and many people focus on healthier living, Achiever Foods Limited is gaining attention for its nutritious products. But behind the brand's growing popularity is a powerful story, one born out of a near-death experience. Co-founders Bright and Millicent Adoboy say life-changing moments inspired them to build a business that now helps others live healthier lives. Achiever Food is our feature today on the Joy Business Van.
Bright Adoboy is a chemist. Millicent Adoboy, food scientist. Husband and wife run Achiever Foods Limited.
Actually, Achiever Foods was born out of my personal story. In 2016, I almost died due to iron deficiency anemia. And prior to that, I was always, falling sick, unproductive at work and all that.
Millicent was rushed to the hospital. It was discovered her blood level was low.
It was as low as 4.3, almost near zero. And that was a very critical situation. So we solicited for some people to donate blood. Unfortunately, at the time, my blood group was not easy to get people to donate. And the blood bank too had not enough blood for them to donate for me.
It was a real struggle for Millicent. She was weak and helpless until a nurse suggested turkey berry. Turkey berry is a type of spiny, flowery shrub that produces large clusters of yellow-green, pea-sized berries. that can be used for a variety of culinary, horticultural, and medicinal purposes. It worked for Millicent, and soon she would recover. Instead of going back to her job, she and Bright decided to invest in making products from turkey berries to help others in similar situation.
We did a lot of research and then we realized that globally, about 1.62 billion people suffer iron deficiency anemia. And it's more prevalent in Africa because of the malnutrition crisis that we have in Africa. And in Ghana, it's very appalling. The numbers are just so bad. And so we did a lot of research into the plants with the necessary authorities like FDA, Ghana Standard Authority, Food Research Institute, and many other bodies. And then we came out with amazing products from turkey berry fruits.
That was how Achiever Foods started. Bright and Millicent began with the production of juice and powder from turkey berries. But it was not as easy at the beginning as the newlywed couple at the time anticipated.
We had a lot of people discouraging us. I mean, they couldn't just imagine we just got married, we are now starting life, and then we've quit our jobs to do this, you know. It was crazy. Our family, they were trying hard to understand the situation. But then, one of the things that kept us going is the fact that we want to contribute to save lives. We want to contribute to make pregnant women have safe deliveries. We want to help women out there, especially because every month they menstruate, they lose blood, and so they need to restore in an organic way.
In the beginning, we're having a lot of difficulty penetrating to the market with this innovation. Even though the products are good, they are very healthy, and people who take it give us a lot of very good feedbacks. Still, people are still skeptical. They think it's the imported products that will do well. So we've had a lot of rejections from the shops. I remember visiting some pharmacy shops, introducing the product to them, and some of the ladies will just look into your face and say, you know what, we don't believe in your products, and you go disappointed, but we kept at it.
Bright and Millicent did not give up. They were convinced about their products and were determined to save lives. They kept pressing.
By the grace of God, we've had experience in the food industry before even this particular innovation started, so we are very much aware of the regulatory opportunities that we need to explore. And so we did a lot of work to make sure that the standards are quality and they are meeting the global demand standards. We make sure that whatever we do at Achiever Foods are able to help solve the particular needs we identified them for.
Achiever Foods started from the couple's kitchen, combining their fields of expertise in chemical research and food science. To be able to produce on a large scale, Bright and Millicent also had to turn focus on production of their newly found gold in large quantities.
We had to really talk to a lot of farmers, because even farmers did not believe that, something good could come out of the turkey berries. So we really had to do a lot of work to talk to farmers. Now we have over 40 smallholder, women farmers that we are working with, and they are really doing well in supplying us with the fruits. A majority of the ingredients we use are, made here in Ghana. And so we started with all that. We spoke to one of few companies, and they were also ready to help us with some of the raw materials we needed to be able to kickstart.
Most of the berries are sourced from the eastern region. Once they arrive at Achiever Foods Production Center in Accra, they are weighed and go through the process of de-stemming.
We pick the fruits from the stems, and then we wash it, and after washing, we weigh it again, and then we take it through the crushing process. Currently, our crushing process and our drying process has been outsourced, so we don't do it in here at the factory. So we outsource it with very recognized bodies. They take the fruits from that level, they crush it, and then they dry it. And then from there, it comes back into the factory. When it comes back into the factory, we take it through another crushing process depending on how it was pre-crushed before it was dried.
After crushing, the next step is to bag into tea forms. They are sealed and labeled under the brand name Deliha Foods, stored, and then the products are distributed to the shops. As Bright indicated, it was quite a tough task to get the public to accept their product, Deliha. Next episode, we'll hear how Achieva Foods broke through the market.
The breakthrough moment which I can remember is some testimonies that started coming from our consumers. For instance, Achimota Hospital, we're doing some business with them, and we will visit their maternity ward and their diabetic clinic and speak to their patients. And that happened after a negotiation with the authorities at the hospital, when they realized that our product was very good and they could use it to manage the health of some of their patients. So from there, we got a lot of referrals, a lot of recommendations, a lot of people rebuying the product and even telling their families to buy.
That's all for Business Live for today. I am Pius Kojo Baka, grateful serving you.